Hello, my name is Sheldon Callahan. I'm the Executive Director of Deep Root Center for Spiritual Studies, a 501c3 nonprofit started by monks of the Shaolin Temple. I've trained in martial arts rooted in Shaolin for over 30 years. Additionally, I'm a musician and composer, and I've created music for most of my life. I've spent my career in technology as a software architect and developer, building systems and teaching others how to build them. For a long time, I thought these were separate paths. But over time, I started to notice something. The same patterns kept showing up across all of them. Not similar, the same. And that changed how I think about mastery. Most people think mastery means going deep into one thing. What I discovered is mastery is also the ability to transfer skills across domains. I'd like to share some personal stories with you about my journey in hopes of illustrating and inspiring your journey as you walk your path. I hope through the power of story, you're able to imagine your own path and see ways that you've already integrated or ways that you could integrate the lessons that you're learning in your incredible journey of self-discovery. I started in music very young. My mother bought a piano, and I just fell in love with the sound and exploring the sound. I didn't start with theory. I didn't start with learning the notes. Over time, I learned rhythm, structure, and melody. And eventually, the idea of notes on a page just melted away. I started thinking in relationships. When I started playing with other musicians, I learned the ability to listen to what they were doing, their cadence, their speed, the notes that they were playing, and where I can blend in and join. At some point, I hit a wall in my skills. There was no amount of reading or self-understanding that was going to get me past that wall. And that's when I realized that I needed a mentor. I had reached an apex in my arranging, playing, and songwriting skills. And those skills that I developed were professional level. However, I knew inside of myself that I needed to grow. I needed to develop. I had actually gotten comfortable in the skills that I had, and that wasn't enough. I sought out someone who had the skills, but also understood that it was more important to have feel than it was to have technical skills. And what he armed me with, additional technical understanding and feel. And so now, all of the things that I've taught myself to do, I now understand the names for them. I now understand what they're called. And because of that understanding, I can do things beyond feel. I can do things because of how they fit architecturally into a composition. My mentor asked me the question, what is the difference between music and noise? And the major thing that comes up to me is that music is organized. Even if it's chaotic, you can hear a rhythm to it. It's not just frantic. You can see the pattern in it, and it becomes musical. And songs by nature are structured. And so I started seeing this yin and yang relationship with the flow of being in the moment and being free, and the juxtaposition of the structure that allows that flow to exist. When I first started studying martial arts, I was without a formal instructor. I learned from a friend who was a savant who could teach himself anything he saw. He had this uncanny ability to do it exact. And so we had books and we had tapes, and we would study those books and tapes, and anything that he saw he can do. My first encounter with this was I was a trained gymnast. And at the time when we started to train together, I was teaching gymnastics, and I shared with him some movements, and he immediately was able to do them even to a better degree than myself. And it was uncanny and incredible to see. While I spent time training with him, I started to adopt his learning style. And then masters would come around and see us training, and they would say, "That's great, young man. Let me show you what those moves do." And we would always be in awe of what they would show us. And then they would say, "I have some books and some tapes you should watch and read." And it was shocking because what they let us know is that we were on the right track. And later on, I found teachers in schools and mentors, and being able to apprentice under some of these teachers accelerated my learning. And so there was a combination between self-discipline and self-learning, curiosity, that led to formal training. And when I went off to college, I went and got training at a Shaolin school. I came back to the Bay Area and continued to train in formal schools and formal settings. So I had this combination of this interest to continue to train even when I didn't have a teacher, but also to find communities and teachers that could help take me to the next level, similar to the pattern that I saw with music. So by the time that I started training with the monks, I was already quite adept at martial arts and gymnastics, which gave me a little bit of an edge in my training. And so I was able to do much of the things that they asked me to do. I got a deeper understanding of the art, the culture, how it's used and applied. And those early stages of self-discovery, but also formal training, really shined and stood out in this scenario. I started to see the principles, and the same principles emerge in the martial arts. In music, there's always either you're pressing a key or you're not. And between that on and off state, there's a rhythm that you build. And so I started to build a new relationship with timing, distance, rhythm, and flow in a physical capacity, not just in a musical feeling capacity or an emotional capacity. And that it wasn't just knowing a technique. In order for it to work, it had to be well timed. And being observant of your own state and the state of other people, similar to when we want to play music with others, you become in tune with where they might go, what they might do, and how you can follow and listen. Martial arts engendered the same qualities. When I moved into programming, I think that I would have been more intimidated if I hadn't done Kung Fu first. But Kung Fu taught me that if I just spend some time with a book, that I can teach myself quite a few things. And then also, if I found a mentor, a community, that I could also enhance my understanding in programming. These structures emerge, variables, conditions, systems. And again, it was the same pattern as before. After learning multiple different programming languages, that they were all structured the same way. Very similar to how most languages are structured the same way. You'll find that most languages will have a greeting. You'll have a way of asking how someone is doing. You'll see these same structures across linguistics to convey ideas. And yes, they all have their different specialties, but generally all human languages function the same way, and computer languages all function in a very similar manner. Realizing that martial arts was a language and that music was a language, I saw another pattern and I recognized that pattern. Working with computers gave me an understanding of systems and designing systems. And I realized that these systems were all governed by something. On the computer, you'll see a pattern of 1 and 0, that all things on a computer can be represented by a series of ones and zeros. When I brought that back to martial arts, we have this concept of yin and yang. And when I bring that back to music, we have this variation of the same concept that is rhythm, that is vibration. All of those are different manifestations of yin and yang, on and off, 1 and 0. I pluck a note or I hit a key and it makes a note, or I don't. And the play between the states of on and off is rhythm. And the realization that I was working with a universal principle became clear. I found a process that I like to call an integration loop. This loop starts in the mind. A master is not just a skilled person. They possess a particular mindset. A mastery mindset is not about perfection, status, or reaching a final destination where learning stops. It is a way of relating to skill, knowledge, and practice that emphasizes depth, adaptability, and intentional action. At its core, a mastery mindset is a state of radical acceptance, really the beginner's mind. This refers to an attitude of openness, eagerness, lightness, but also a lack of preconceptions, the same kind of wonder as we learn about the world as a child, without strain, without judgment. A mastery mindset asks a simple question: how deeply do I understand what I'm doing at a principle level? And how do I apply it at will? When we talk about mastery mindsets, we're referring to how people think, learn, grow, and relate to their craft, work, and life. This mindset shapes not only what we can do, but also how we approach what we do. Learning how you learn is essential to understanding how you absorb and synthesize information. For some of us, we are auditory learners. Some are kinesthetic learners. Some are visual learners. Some are all three. Understanding what your learning style is going to be key to skill acquisition. For instance, I absorb information very slowly through repetition, repeating and repeating until it makes sense. I recognize that I may not understand something initially, but the exposure has already set the course for my learning. And all I have to do from that point on is to continue to expose myself to the information, ask questions, and seek answers. I have learned to accept and embrace my learning style, even though there were times where it was very hard for me to do so. Integration. When we're at the level of integration, we're seeing past patterns and we're seeing the underlying principle. Now, the skills become a part of how we think. What's actually happening isn't just a change in your ability, it's a change in your perception. What changes as you develop isn't just what you can do, it's what you can see. As a beginner, you might start picking up on the patterns. When you become proficient, you might see the systems that are creating those patterns. But when you become fully integrated, you see the principles and how those principles apply across everything. Patterns are what you can see. Systems are what produce those patterns, and principles are what govern the systems. Once you understand the principle, you are no longer stuck in the pattern. When we move beyond the pattern, new insights can be integrated quickly. Instead of starting from zero, new knowledge is placed into an existing framework. That's why masters often appear to learn faster than beginners. They are not necessarily smarter. They are better organized internally. They know what to ask. They know what information matters. They know how to apply what they learn. This adaptability is one of the clearest signs of true mastery. Many people unconsciously believe that mastery means effort disappears once you reach a certain level. Practice is no longer necessary. In reality, mastery replaces struggle with refinement. The work does not end, it becomes more precise. Instead of asking, "How do I do this at all?" a master asks, "How do I do this with less waste? How do I do this with better timing? How do I do this with greater clarity and intention?" This shift from effort to refinement is a defining characteristic of a mastery mindset. And that we want to truly lock in what we know. Share it. You don't truly know something until you share it. And sharing strengthens our understanding. It helps us to put our understanding into our own words, allowing us to now look at how others absorb information and how we can make our minds more flexible and find different ways to explain a topic. So share what you know. Share your knowledge. Don't hoard it. Your expertise can die on the vine when you don't share it. Don't be afraid to share your expertise. Why this loop is important is because once we fully integrated and understood something at a fundamental level, we go back and we return to the beginner's mind. And we have the opportunity to see our learning from another angle and to continue to deepen. So there's always this opportunity of cycling through what we've done before and learn it on a different level or in a different domain. Technically, this is a spiral of learning because we are moving through time, or time is moving through us. Repeating this integration loop creates a beautiful way to apply the concepts and ideas we spoke about in your practice. To get closer on our journey of mastery, there is no shortcut, only time and effort, integrating the principles into action. Mastery isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing how to access what you know and apply it where it's needed. I hope that you are able to apply these concepts and ideas that we spoke about in the presentation and integrate it into who you are. If you'd like to further connect with me, you can sign up for my free Inner Circle Digest. It is a wisdom archive of wellness articles and topics where we discuss everything from meditation, energetics, and our training journey. I'm Sheldon Callahan. Thank you for joining us.